Good morning, fourth grade, and happy Monday. I hope your weekend was nice and restful and you were able to get some good quality time with your family. Okay, so you know what? Let's just get the secret word out of the way. The secret word today is going to be butterfly. However, stay tuned for an important message coming throughout this lesson. All right, first of all, we're going to start off with what is a mixed number. And we know mixed number as being a whole number and a fraction. So in this picture up here, I have some rectangles and some of them are shaded completely and one is only shaded half. So how can I take this picture and make a mixed number? Well, first I can determine how many whole numbers I have. So I've got 3 whole, and then I can determine what part of a whole I have, and I clearly have 1/2. So all I have to do is just take the pictures that I have and write them according to their values here. So this mixed number is going to be broken down into its parts. So since my fraction is a half, I'm going to take my half and I'm going to break down the exact same amount of rectangles and just break them all being the same amount equal to this fraction. Now, we're not going to do this every time we multiply mixed numbers to other numbers. This is just a way for you to kind of get a visual of what's happening with the number, and this is how it becomes an improper fraction. So each one of these is represented by a half, so the question becomes, how many 1/2 tiles do I have altogether? So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 half tiles. So the total amount of tiles I have is 7. Now remember this, because this number is going to come in handy when we do one of our examples in the book. So another thing for this lesson that we want to make sure that we know how to do is we want to make sure that we know how to make mixed numbers mad. Now, not necessarily we want to make them angry, we just want to make them mad, meaning that mad is an acronym that each letter stands for one part of how to change a mixed number to an improper fraction. So the mixed number I have here is 4 2/3. So my first step in the M is going to be multiply the denominator to the whole number. So the denominator in this fraction is 3, and the whole number in this fraction is 4. So we're going to multiply those two together. So I'm just going to take the denominator, multiply it to the whole number, which you can see here, and I'll get 12. The A in this acronym is add. The add part is I'm going to take the product 12, which I got from multiplying the denominator to the whole number, and then I'm going to add that product to the numerator, and I'm going to get 14. The last part of the acronym is D. D stands for the denominator part. Well, the denominator will just say the same, 3, as it was in the original problem. And my new numerator, will be 14. So now I've taken the mixed number 4 2/3, and I have changed 4 2/3 to equal the improper fraction of 14/3. This is going to be important because in order for us to multiply fractions with mixed numbers, we need to first convert them into improper fractions. So if you do not understand how to convert numbers or mixed numbers into improper fractions, I suggest you stop the video, you go practice, you practice the steps, you get some sample problems, and you come back once you're very good at doing that. All right, now let's go over the example. The example is that we're going to take this word problem and see how to multiply mixed numbers to fractions or even to whole numbers. So a blueberry muffin recipe calls for 1/2 cup of blueberries. A blueberry pie recipe calls for 3.5 times more blueberries. How many cups of berries are needed to make the pie? So the first thing that we see here is that we have a blueberry muffin. This is different than a blueberry pie, one in size. So therefore, it makes sense that you would have 3 times more blueberries in one than the other. But we need this 1/2 cup blueberries because that's going to be our starting point to know when I multiply the 1/2 cup of them in the muffin that I'm going to get 3.5 times more. And again, that word times is a very good clue that you're going to multiply. So here in the model, we're going to show 1.5 times 3.5. So first we're going to shade the squares that represent the product. So what this has done is they have divided their sections basically into 4, if you cannot see that very quickly. And so that each section is represented by 4 parts. Now these 4 parts are going to be shown as 3.5. So remember when we were doing the example above, we determined that how many halves were in 3.5? Right, there were 7. So we're going to shade 7 half pieces. And that's going to represent our number 7. Now what they've done is they've taken these 7 pieces I've just shaded and they've combined it into one picture. So they just drew a rectangle divided into 8 parts, since I had 7 that I needed to shade, and to show that I had one piece here that wasn't going to be shaded. So this model represents the fraction 7/4, which is also going to show you that I have one whole piece I can take from this and 3/4 of a piece that I can take for this, with that part not being shaded. So by adding these two fractions together, I'm going to get the mixed number of 1 3/4. So the number of shaded sections in my picture up here was 7, and the number of squares in each of these models was 4, so my improper fraction is 7/4. And when I combine those, I get those 1/4 pieces. I get a total of 1 3/4 as my answer. All right, now let's look at the multiplying a mixed number by a mixed number. So we want to make sure that we remember the steps. They go over the steps right here. I'm going to go over the steps for you again on the side. So remembering the first steps, we're going to take this first fraction, we're going to make it into improper fraction. First step, multiply the denominator 2 by the whole number 1, and you're going to get 2. And then you're going to add that product 2 to the numerator 1, and you're going to get 3. So my first improper fraction is going to be 3 halves. Now my second number, 3 3/4, you're going to do the same. You're going to take the denominator 4, you're going to multiply it by the whole number 3, and you're going to get 12. And then you're going to take that 12, you're going to add it to the 3, and you're going to get 15. So my new fraction here is going to be 15/4. So we don't have anything to cross cancel in this one. Cross canceling, if you can remember, is I can either cancel numbers that have something in common vertically, or I can cancel numbers that have something in common diagonally. But none of these numbers have anything in common that they can be divided by vertically or diagonally. So we're not going to do any kind of canceling. We're just going to have to multiply. So let's multiply the numbers on the top. 3 times 15 is equal to 45, and 2 times 4 is equal to 8. So our new improper fraction is 45/8. Now for this lesson, we're going to change since we've started with mixed numbers, we have to end with mixed numbers. So in cases where you don't have that, you can leave it as an improper fraction, but for this case, we actually do need to change it back into a mixed number as our simplified form. So when I want to change this fraction into a mixed number, these are my steps. I just divide the bottom into the top, and to figure out how many 8s are in 45. So if I was to think about how many 8s are in 45, what number would you come up with? That's right, you would come up with 5, because 5 times 8 is 40. And when I subtract, I get 5 left over. Now, if I want to make a fraction using this, all I do is take 5 becomes my numerator, and 8 becomes my denominator, and my new answer is 5 5/8. So 1 1/2 times 3 3/4 is 5 5/8. Now I would suggest that if this is confusing for you, that you either make yourself a chart or create some kind of notes that go over the steps. The main steps that you need to remember in this lesson are MAD, where you're taking and you're multiplying, you're adding, and then the denominator will stay the same. And the second thing that you want to remember is how to change a improper fraction to a mixed number by dividing the bottom into the top. All right. So practice that to make life a little bit easier. You will be doing the independent practice if you wish. Please check your work. That's going to be a great way for you to see if you really do understand how to do these. And of course, if you have any problems with this, reach out to me and you can tell me what your problems are, and maybe we can actually discuss it over type. Now, I've decided to add one last new thing in today, and that is a challenge problem. So here's how the challenge problem is going to work. When I add a challenge problem into the lesson, you will read the problem and then you will solve the problem anywhere you want, but where you submit the answer will be by sending me a note in Schoology. And in the note, you will have your answer. If you are right or wrong, I will respond. And if you are wrong, I will respond with the correct answer. And if you are correct, I will respond with letting you know that I've given you a bonus point. So I've been keeping track of all the bonus points for you since we've started this. So read this problem, see if you can solve it. Oops, this should have been a question mark. My fault. And if you don't want to do this, it's completely optional. I suggest everyone should try and do it just to see if you're going to get the answer right or wrong. It's a great learning lesson to help you. By the way, there will be a test on Thursday that's going to go over all of multiplying fractions. So if you are not comfortable with multiplying fractions, you need to let me know as soon as possible so we can figure out a way that we can go over this a little bit more with you. However, the best way is going to go back to all the different independent practices we've done, do the numbers you haven't done, and then go back to the answer keys and check them. I will keep all of those lessons up on Schoology so that way you have access to them. When it comes to turning in your work today, the one thing that's going to be different is you're only going to submit homework. But I do need you to do one thing before you do that. Please correct it first. Do the homework and then open up the answer key, check your answers. You should also do homework corrections right now, because that's going to stick the best in your mind. You're going to see it, you're going to do it, and hopefully you're going to be able to maybe figure out your mistakes or see if you made any kind of small careless errors, which can happen. All right, I hope you have a great day. All the best with the challenge problem, and see you tomorrow.